We've already seen the new Q60R from Samsung. Now it's time to take a look at the next step up, the Q70, and see what kind of improvements they've made over last year's Q7. Right off the bat, Samsung tells us this is a TV they want to get into a lot of people's homes. They don't come right out and say it though, it's more subtle than that. Last year the Q7 came in 55, 65, and 75-inch options. The Q70 offers all those sizes plus 49 and 82-inch versions. So they've got a TV here that fits more applications just based on size alone. The Q70 is also the second TV in the QLED lineup, and with that you see some design upgrades over the Q60, their starting point. The bezel on this one's about half the size of what's on the Q60, which is minimal to start. You can barely see it in the light and it all but disappears in the dark, but there is a black border around the picture that can make the bezel seem a bit thicker than it actually is. The pedestal feet, although still spaced far apart, are metal on this one and they feel much more substantial. Plus, it has a slightly more sophisticated cable management system built in. But none of that pedestal info really matters if you're going to put this on the wall. And I really feel like this is going to be an easier wall installation for more people now because of something Samsung's actually omitted from this over the Q7, the One Connect box. I personally can't say I'm sorry to see it go. It's a useful concept, but I think it lends itself better to installs on a stand rather than on the wall. But we'd love to hear what you think, so make sure you let us know down in the comments. That being said, all your inputs are now on the back of the TV, and there's some upgrades here over the Q7 as well. You get 4 HDMI 2.1s, however there are some slight limitations over what you'd find on, say, the Q900 series. These don't offer eARC, but you can send Atmos through them if your TV's outputting Dolby Digital Plus. And they support high frame rate, but it's limited to 2K content at 120 frames per second. Something that gamers might appreciate though is support for VRR and auto low latency, and there's also support for dynamic metadata. Getting back to the rest of the inputs, there's an antenna connection, 2 Type A USB ports, RS-232C, and an Ethernet connection, along with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. There's also an optical output for anyone wanting a hardwired solution for a soundbar or receiver. And speaking of audio, this appears to be the same as last year's Q7. You get 40 watts of amplification powering the built-in 2.1 channel system. It's decent as far as TV speakers go. Mids were full and highs sounded crisp, and you can make out the vocals pretty clearly, but bass, although this does have that 0.1 channel, is still lacking a little bit. Of course, this can all be remedied with a supplemental sound system. And that brings us to the picture. Now, in my opinion, this is one of, if not the most important upgrades they made over the Q7 of last year and the entry-level Q60 from this year. We now get a full array panel with local dimming. And it works well. You're gonna pick up more details in the dark and bright spots, and there wasn't a lot of notable light bloom. And Samsung's quantum dots provide some amazing color. I found it in some cases to be a bit oversaturated, but there's so many adjustments you can make that with a little effort, I really feel like anyone can get this catered to their personal preferences. And as far as formats go, this can display HDR, HDR10+, and HLG, so not quite everything available, but most of them. Motion was another aspect of the Q70 that handled really well. I wasn't picking up too much distracting judder anywhere, and the people on the screen seemed to be moving pretty fluidly. Though, again, like the colors, motion settings can be adjusted within the menus to get it to where it kind of looks best to the end user. Lag times were great too. We tested this on game mode with a 1080p signal at 60 Hz with game motion plus turned off, and we're getting times of around 14 milliseconds. With game mode turned completely off, they were closer to 74 milliseconds. And here's another minor difference between this and the Q7 of last year, the remote. The size and shape are the same, but now we've got 3 shortcut buttons below the other controls for Netflix, Prime Video, and Hulu. It's nothing dramatic, but it makes getting to those apps a lot quicker. A push of the home button also brings up the Samsung Smart Hub, which appears to have stayed pretty much the same. Ambient Mode's back too, and can be found either in the Smart Hub or by pushing a shortcut button on the remote as well. Another button you'll see on the remote is for voice control in the form of Bixby. Yes, Bixby's back, and you're gonna see it on all the new QLED sets, and although it's not my favorite smart assistant, it does allow for more in-depth voice control of your TV. You can do all the typical stuff like check the weather, open YouTube, or raise or lower the volume, but you can also get into the menus to do things like make changes to the picture settings or turn on game mode. But here's another significant upgrade over the Q7 from last year. The Q70 also works easily with Google Home and Amazon's Alexa. There's a small caveat though, you'll need to have a separate device, something like a Google Home Mini or Echo Dot. But still, this is great to see, and I think it'll draw more attraction from people who might not have considered these TVs otherwise. So the biggest upgrades over last year's Q7, to me at least, are a full array panel with local dimming, HDMI 2.1, more available sizes, and the ability to work more easily with Google and Alexa. All of these, as far as I'm concerned, make this a worthwhile upgrade. What do you think? Make sure to let us know in the comments. As always, we appreciate you watching our video, and don't forget to subscribe so you get updates whenever we upload new content.